In the dim light of Willow Creek's general store, Louisa Bennett clutched her worn shawl tighter, eyes scanning the dusty shelves. Her calloused hands reached for a tin of beans, fingers tracing the cool metal. A whisper of silk and perfume announced Clara Ashford's arrival. "Look," Clara drawled, "it is the town's own little Cinderella." Her gloved hand gestured towards Louisa's faded dress, a sneer playing on her lips. "Still scrubbing and mending, I see." Louisa stiffened but didn't turn. She'd heard worse from Clara and her kind. "You're wasting your time here," Clara continued, leaning in. "People like you will never be welcome in our circles." She smirked, flicking an imaginary speck of dust from Louisa's sleeve. The room hushed, eyes darting between the two women. Louisa's knuckles whitened around the tin, but she held her tongue. She wouldn't stoop to Clara's level. The bell above the door jingled, and Nathaniel Cole stepped in. The air seemed to shift with his presence. His gaze swept over the scene, Clara's smug smile, Louisa's rigid back, and his expression darkened. "You misunderstand," he said, voice low and dangerous. He walked towards Louisa, every step echoing in the silent room. "It isn't Mrs. Bennett's clothes or her station that matter to me." He stopped beside her, tall and imposing. He plucked the tin from her grasp, adding it to his own pile on the counter. "It is her character," he said, looking directly at Clara now. "Something you know nothing about." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Louisa looked up at Nathaniel, surprise warring with gratitude in her eyes. He met her gaze briefly before turning away, dismissing Clara as if she were beneath his notice. "Send my things to the ranch," he told Mr. Harper behind the counter. Then he tipped his hat to Louisa and strode out, leaving behind a stunned silence. As the door swung shut behind him, Louisa finally let out a slow breath. In that moment, something shifted inside her, a spark igniting against the cold indifference of Willow Creek society. She looked down at her old dress, feeling it differently now. Nathaniel Cole might be a wealthy rancher, but he saw something more in her than faded fabric and worn hands, and that made all the difference. From that day forward, whispers followed them both, about Nathaniel's unexpected defense and Louisa's quiet dignity under fire, but neither paid them any mind. Their paths had crossed that day in more ways than one, their fates intertwined like threads in a tapestry yet to be woven whole. And so began an unlikely alliance between Willow Creek's poor widow and its wealthiest rancher, an alliance born out of respect earned and honor defended. Amidst whispered slurs and scornful glances, days turned into weeks, Louisa settling into a rhythm at Ridgeline Ranch. She woke with the sun, tackling the chaos in the kitchen with quiet efficiency. The Cowans, rough and ready men, warmed to her, their initial wariness melting away as they sampled her cooking and saw the order she brought to their domain. One evening, as Louisa hung laundry out to dry, she heard hooves approaching. Nathaniel rode up, hat pulled low against the setting sun. He dismounted, his gaze sweeping over her, lingering on her hands reddened and chapped from work. "I've been thinking," he said, tipping his hat back. "The ranch house could use some tender care." His eyes met hers. "I'd like to offer you a position there." Louisa paused, a shirt fluttering in her grasp. She'd seen the state of the main house, grand but neglected. She suspected this was more than an act of charity. Yet pride warred with practicality. She needed this work. "And what if I say no?" she challenged, drying her hands on her apron. Nathaniel shrugged nonchalantly, but his eyes held a spark of determination. "Then I'll keep asking until you say yes." Louisa smiled despite herself. "Well," she said, "I suppose it wouldn't hurt to consider it." That night, under the soft glow of lamplight, they sat at the kitchen table, Nathaniel's ledgers spread out between them. He pointed at figures, explaining each entry with concise clarity. Louisa listened intently, asking questions when something didn't make sense. Hours passed unnoticed until only the embers of the fire remained alight. Their knees brushed under the table, neither pulled away. Instead, they lingered over numbers and stories long after they should have retired for the night. The next storm came without warning, a deluge that sent rivers cascading down from the hills surrounding Ridgeline Ranch. Louisa huddled in her small cabin near the main house. As rain pounded against the roof like 1,000 tiny fists, suddenly, there was a knock at her door. Nathaniel stood there, water streaming off his hat brim onto his boots. "The river's rising fast," he shouted over the din. "We need to get you up to the main house." Louisa grabbed what she could, a blanket, a small bag with personal items, and followed Nathaniel through the pouring rain. They slogged through mud and water until they reached the safety of the ranch house. Inside, Nathaniel built up the fire while Louisa found candles and lit them against encroaching darkness. The house creaked around them as wind howled outside. Nathaniel checked his pocket watch, then cursed under his breath. "What is it?" Louisa asked. "Some of my men are still out there," he replied grimly. "They were moving cattle when this hit." Louisa looked at him, really looked at him, and saw fear lurking beneath his stoic facade. She took a step closer. "We can't do anything for them now," she said softly, "but we can make sure we're ready when they get back." Together they prepared food and drink for when they returned home safe and sound. And though neither spoke of it again that night, both silently prayed for dawn's first light to bring good news. Days later, Louisa tended to a cut on one of the Cowan's arms when Nathaniel entered unexpectedly. "Careful there," he said gruffly from behind her shoulder. She turned slightly, so he could see better what she was doing without jostling her patient too much. "I've done this before," she assured him gently but firmly before adding more ointment onto a clean cloth and pressing it onto the wound. Gently yet firmly enough for him not to wince too much, at least not visibly anyway, because he was trying very hard not to show any sign of weakness. Especially in front of others, especially in front of her. After all, she had seen him lose control during that stormy night together. Even though only briefly, still it left an impression on both of them. Especially him because he hadn't lost control like that since ever really, not even when. Nathaniel caught himself mid-thought, realization dawning on him just how much this woman affected him, more than just physically too. Yes, there was attraction, no doubt about that. But there was also something else, something deeper, something stronger, something realer than anything else he had ever felt before in his entire life. Even though he knew better than anyone else that getting involved with someone like Louisa would only lead them both down paths filled with pain, heartache, misunderstandings, etc., 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 because society would never accept their relationship, not even close, let alone allow them any kind of happiness together. So why bother? Why try? Why risk everything? Yet, despite all those reasons, why not's logic, reasons, practicalities, here, they were standing mere inches apart, breathing each other's air. Hearts. Nathaniel's gaze dropped to her lips, then back up to her eyes. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his knuckles brushing her cheek. "Louisa," he began, his voice low. A sharp knock at the door startled them apart. Nathaniel stepped away, leaving Louisa feeling suddenly cold. He opened the door to reveal a man she'd never seen before. Tall, well-dressed, with a face that seemed both familiar and strange. "Nathaniel Cole," the man said, tipping his hat back. "I've been looking for you." "And you are?" Nathaniel asked, an edge to his voice. "Name's Samuel Harrison," he replied, stepping into the room without invitation. His eyes landed on Louisa, widening briefly in recognition. "And you, Louisa Bennett, I haven't seen you since we were last engaged." The room seemed to still. Louisa's heart pounded in her ears. "Samuel," she managed to say, "what are you doing here?" "I heard you were here," he said, looking around the room. "Thought it was time we caught up." Meanwhile, Clara, the town gossip, had been watching from her window. She'd seen Samuel arrive, seen him enter Nathaniel's house. Her eyes narrowed as she put two and two together. "That woman," she muttered to herself. "She is not who she says she is." She set off towards the town square, ready to spread her newfound knowledge. That night, as Louisa and Nathaniel sat across from each other at dinner, the tension was palpable. Nathaniel broke the silence first. "You never mentioned an engagement before." Louisa sighed, pushing her food around her plate. "It was a long time ago, Nathaniel. We were young, foolish. It didn't end well. And yet he is here now," Nathaniel pointed out. "Yes," Louisa admitted, meeting his gaze. "He is here now, but that doesn't change anything between us." But it did. The next day, whispers followed Louisa wherever she went. Women avoided her gaze, men tipped their hats but said nothing. She overheard hushed conversations, saw accusing looks. "She is after Nathaniel's money," one woman said loudly enough for Louisa to hear. Always was a gold digger. Louisa felt a pang in her heart. She'd thought she'd finally found a place where she belonged, where she was accepted, but it seemed Willow Creek had changed its mind. She decided she'd had enough. That evening, she packed her bags and went to Nathaniel's office. "I'm leaving, Nathaniel," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. He looked up from his desk, surprise etched on his face. "What? Why?" "You know why," she said softly. "I won't be a source of scandal for you, Nathaniel. I won't let them think I'm using you." "Let them think what they want," he said, standing up. "I know the truth." "Yes," Louisa agreed, "you do, but do you really want to fight this battle with me? It is not worth it, Nathaniel. Not for me." And with that, Louisa Bennett walked out of Ridgeline Ranch, leaving behind the man she'd come to care for deeply, but unable to stay where she was no longer welcome. The moon hung low, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out for her, trying to pull her back, but she walked on, her heart heavy but determined. Nathaniel watched her go from his office window, his reflection staring back at him, a stranger in his own eyes. He'd let her walk away, let her think that he didn't care enough to fight for her. But he did. God, he did. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the liquid burning his throat as he swallowed it down. The room felt empty without her in it. The house felt cold. He missed her laugh, her smile, her strength. He missed her. Days turned into weeks. Nathaniel threw himself into work, but even Ridgeline Ranch couldn't keep his mind off Louisa. He found himself looking for her in every corner of the house, expecting to see her in every room, but she was gone. One evening, as he sat alone in his study, a letter arrived. It was from an old friend in Boston, a detective he'd used once before when he needed information quickly and quietly. Nathaniel had written to him about Louisa, about the whispers and the rumors. He'd asked him to find out the truth. The letter was thick, filled with pages of notes and newspaper clippings. Nathaniel read through them, his heart pounding in his chest. The more he read, the angrier he became. Clara's father, it seemed, had always been jealous of Nathaniel's success. He'd seen an opportunity when Louisa arrived in town, a way to discredit her, to turn the townsfolk against her, to force Nathaniel into marrying Clara instead. He'd used Samuel as a pawn, paying him to pretend to be Louisa's fiancé. Nathaniel's hands shook as he read the final page. Clara's father had even spread rumors about Louisa's past, accusing her of theft, of immoral behavior. All lies, all to drive her out of town. The room spun around him. He'd been so blind, so stupid. He'd let them push Louisa away, had let them fill his head with their lies and their suspicions. He'd let them take her from him. He stood up, knocking over his chair in his haste. He had to find Louisa. He had to tell her the truth. He had to make this right. He rode out into the night, the moon casting a silver glow over the landscape. He didn't know where she was, but he knew he'd find her. He had to, because he loved her, and he wasn't going to let anyone take her from him again. Not Clara's father, not Samuel, not even Louisa herself. He would fight for her, with everything he had, and if it took him the rest of his life, he would make it up to her. He would make it right. He would win her back, no matter what it took, because she was worth fighting for, and because he loved her, more than anything, more than life itself, more than Ridgeline Ranch, more than anything in this world or the next. He loved her, and he wouldn't stop until she knew it, until she believed it, until she felt it as deeply as he did, until she loved him back, until they were together again. Forever. Underneath Ridgeline Ranch's sprawling expanse was a secret oil reserve, an untapped wealth that could secure Nathaniel's future forever. But word had spread among unscrupulous men who sought to claim it for themselves. A group of heavily armed bandits descended upon the ranch, their eyes gleaming with greed. Louisa, hearing the commotion, rushed outside to find the men storming the main house. Nathaniel was out, attending to a fence mending elsewhere on the property. She knew she had to act fast. Slipping back inside, she grabbed a shotgun from the closet and loaded it, her hands steady, despite the fear coursing through her veins. She slipped out through a side door and circled around towards the bandits' flank position in the barns, where they were gathering supplies and horses for their new plan, torching Ridgeline Ranch until Nathaniel surrendered or died in flames. Louisa saw her chance. She climbed onto the hayloft above them, holding her breath as she aimed the shotgun at the men below. "All right, listen up," she called down, her voice echoing in the barn. "You're not taking this ranch, not while I'm alive." The men below turned, shock registering on their faces. They hadn't expected to find a woman challenging them. Louisa could see their thoughts turning, whether to laugh or shoot. "You're outnumbered, girlie," one sneered. "Not really," Louisa replied coolly, before blowing apart one corner post, holding up part of their makeshift camp. Panic ensued among bandits who started firing wildly upwards towards Louisa, while trying desperately hard not get crushed under falling debris. Meanwhile, Nathaniel returned home riding hard after hearing distant gunshots echo across his property, his gut twisting knowing something terrible must have happened. He found Louisa holed up inside one barn still holding off bandits, while simultaneously directing his ranch hands hidden nearby. Through coded whistles only she and they understood. Nathaniel's heart swelled with pride at her bravery, yet ached at the thought of losing her. He couldn't let that happen. He stealthily approached, his rifle ready, joining forces with Louisa once again. Together they fought back against the bandits, outsmarting them with Louisa's strategic commands and Nathaniel's fierce determination. As the last of the intruders fell or fled, they stood together panting, their bodies touching. "Louisa," Nathaniel began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "I love you. I love your strength, your courage, but also your kindness, the part no one sees except those who earn its privilege." He reached forward, slowly touching Louisa's cheek with tender care. Louisa closed her eyes, briefly enjoying his touch before opening them, filled with unshed tears. "I love everything about you, Nathaniel Cole," she whispered softly, from being drawn initially to those hidden depths within, later discovering those softnesses hidden beneath tough exteriors, loving every part deeply. Their hands found each other naturally, their lips following suit. Lost within each other, they found their forever. In the days that followed their harrowing ordeal, Louisa and Nathaniel found solace in each other's arms. The bandits were either captured or scattered, their greed replaced by fear of the duo, who had stood their ground against insurmountable odds. Clara, meanwhile, faced an unexpected reckoning. Her father's lies about Louisa had caught up with him. His business partners saw through his deceit and withdrew their support. The family fortune dwindled rapidly, and soon Clara found herself stripped of her privileges and cast out by her own kin. The townsfolk of Willow Creek began to see Louisa in a new light. They'd witnessed her bravery, her quick thinking, and her unwavering spirit. The woman they'd once dismissed as a poor, desperate widow was now a beacon of resilience and strength. Their attitudes shifted. They no longer saw Louisa through the lens of her past circumstances, but through her actions and character. Louisa didn't flaunt her newfound status or rely on Nathaniel's wealth to validate her worth. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves and set to work managing Ridgeline Ranch alongside him. She proved herself an astute businesswoman, implementing changes that improved efficiency and profitability. The ranch hands looked up to her, respecting her fairness and kindness. Nathaniel watched Louisa with pride and admiration. He'd fallen in love with her strength and courage, but seeing her take charge of the ranch, he fell deeper. She wasn't just his partner, she was his equal. He respected her abilities and trusted her implicitly. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset over their land, Nathaniel turned to Louisa. "You know," he began softly, "you don't need me to validate your worth. You've proven that time and again. But I hope you'll accept this. Ridgeline Ranch isn't just mine anymore. It is ours." Louisa looked at him, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I don't need your name or your money to feel like I belong here, Nathaniel," she replied, firmly yet gently, "but knowing that you see me as an equal partner, that means everything." Their hands entwined naturally, their bond stronger than ever. They'd built something beautiful together. Not just a life but a legacy, and they'd done it not by changing who they were, but by embracing their true selves. In the eyes of Willow Creek, Louisa was no longer the poor woman in ragged clothes. She was Louisa Bennett Cole, the proud and capable matriarch of Ridgeline Ranch, and she had earned every ounce of respect that came with it. As for Clara, she eventually found her way back to Willow Creek, humbled and changed by her experiences. She sought Louisa out one day, apologetic and seeking redemption. Louisa welcomed her with open arms, showing Clara the same kindness she'd once been too blind to see. Together, these three women, once divided by circumstance and prejudice, forged a new path forward, bound by mutual respect and understanding. Their story became a testament to strength, resilience, and the power of love to conquer all odds. Many years later, the tale of Louisa Bennett Cole still echoed through Willow Creek. It was whispered in the general store, retold around campfires, and passed down through generations. The story of how a woman once scorned had become the heart of their town. Nathaniel Cole sat on his porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. His once cold eyes now held warmth, reflecting on the life they'd built together. Louisa's laughter drifted from inside, a sound he'd grown to cherish more than anything. She joined him outside, her arm wrapping around his waist naturally. "Remember when we first met?" she asked softly. Nathaniel chuckled. "How could I forget? You were holding off bandits with nothing but a pitchfork and your wits." Louisa smiled. "And you were the big bad rancher everyone feared." Their eyes met, filled with shared memories and love. "We've come a long way since then," Nathaniel murmured. "Indeed," Louisa replied. "We've proven that love can conquer anything, even the harshest judgments and deepest misunderstandings." Their moment was interrupted by a rider approaching. The town's doctor dismounted, his expression grave. "Nathaniel, Louisa," he began, "I'm afraid there has been an accident at the mill. Clara's been hurt." Louisa's breath hitched, but she quickly composed herself. "Let's go," she said firmly. In the wagon ride to town, Nathaniel took Louisa's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "She'll pull through," he said confidently. Louisa nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "She will," she agreed, "because we won't give up on her like we once did." At the mill, they found Clara unconscious but stable. Louisa took charge immediately, directing the doctor and helping to make Clara comfortable. Nathaniel stood watch, his gaze steady and protective. Hours passed before Clara finally stirred awake. Her eyes fluttered open, landing on Louisa first. A weak smile tugged at her lips. "Louisa," she whispered hoarsely. Louisa smiled back, taking Clara's hand gently. "Shh. Don't try to talk," she soothed. Clara's gaze shifted to Nathaniel, then back to Louisa. "You've always been there for me," she said softly, "even when I didn't deserve it." "Family looks out for each other," Louisa replied firmly, "no matter what." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, but they were no longer tears of pain or despair. They were tears of understanding, of forgiveness, and of love. In that moment, she knew she was truly part of their family, not by blood but by choice. As they all sat there, united in their support for Clara, the town watched on. They saw not just a wealthy rancher and his wife, but a family bound together by love and respect, a family that had weathered storms and proven that love truly could conquer all odds. And so, the story of Louisa Bennett Cole continued to unfold, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and redemption. A story that would continue to inspire Willow Creek for generations to come.